I think if you talk to a number of people, lots of people in Rossland, about being in the mountains, there's an energy up here that replenishes you and energizes you, and that's not corny to say that. I mean, we are energy, and there's just something about being in the mountains. Well, there's a little motto over there on the wall. It says, "The mountains are calling and I must go." That was John Muir, the man who explored Yosemite. And that's kind of, if you're really a mountaineer, the mountains are calling. I must go. So here we are. We're in the mountains. Well, my mother and father were part of the quite large group of people in the 1930s and 40s that used to come ski touring into these mountains. So there was a trail ski club and a Rossland ski club, all of whom used to come up into these mountains. And they had cabins, they had mountain cabins that they'd stay at and were sort of their base camps. And when my mom and dad got together and had kids, it was just natural that they would continue that lifestyle and pass it on. So the lifestyle was passed on, and the connection with this cabin was passed on through my folks. So it's always been a part of the fabric of my life. My dad, the only man who would ever wear a tie at the cabin. My dear dad. If he were alive today, he'd be 120 years old. And they're kind of the iconic reflection of how this whole place came to be. The very social, pleasurable aspect of skiing. Gathering together in a cabin, having a glass of wine after a day of skiing. That's what they used to do. And in different ways now, that's what hundreds, thousands of people do a year here. It's a lot more sophisticated now than it used to be. But the elemental part of skiing hasn't changed, really. People still love it for just the sport that it is. And the cabins just are the connection with the initial history. I don't know if any other ski areas have that sort of thing. So people will come into this cabin, for instance, and hear about the history, for me, and get to see what people created back in time, to support their sport. I consider myself privileged and very fortunate. I blessed my dear old dad often for being a part of the building of it. Yeah, it was the best kind of legacy he could have provided me.